It's time for the Brown Sports Bag on WCLU, the official local sports show here in Glasgow and Barron County. And now, alongside John Butler, here is your host, James Brown.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We're back again this week. James Brown, John Butler. We're here to talk about some sports-related stuff. We've hit that period, John. Well, of course, the high school stuff. There's not a whole lot going on, just because. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The dead period starts on Wednesday, so you're right. In a couple of days, there will be none going on. There's a little bit of, people out playing golf, that kind of stuff, some of the local kids and that jazz. So, I know we're a local first show, and we're going to do the best we can to keep you updated on different things going on. There may be transfers and coaching changes during the summer at the rate high school sports is going.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, sure, maybe so. But to that end, we're going to talk a little bit about some summer basketball. I was kind of curious. I got to see the Barron County girls play. I got to see the Glasgow girls play, Caverna boys, Barron County boys. I got to see the Glasgow girls. I didn't get to see the Caverna girls play, so, So I tried to get at least a game in with everybody. We shot some photos of different games going on. And, Barron and Caverna and Glasgow went and played at the KABC shootout that's up in the Lexington area this past weekend.
Are we talking boys or girls?
Let's start with the boys.
All right.
And I will say this, I'll start with Barron in this sense, because we've already talked about the Caverna's thing. The Barron lost, 5 guards who had played a lot, 3 who had played a lot. And
lost 3
to starters.
3 to 4 year starters.
Yeah.
And Tate Spillman and Bray Bewley.
That's right. And, that's what we always talk about this on this show. If you have good guards, especially good guards with experience coming back, then you have a good chance to have a good team. And that's the question mark for Barron's boys basketball team next year is you lose that many guards, good guards, as you mentioned, a couple of them who started 3 or 4 years, then you've got to find some people to fill those holes. And I actually was impressed. I thought they played better than I expected during the summer. With that, they do have Cade Hardy coming back, who's the point guard with experience and played quite a bit the last couple of years. With and behind those guys, he was a starter last year with those guys. So he'll be a senior this coming year. And then you've got some young guys who are coming up, like I think Mason Griggs and maybe Ben Blackburn, who
Maddox Griggs.
Maddox Griggs, that's right. Yeah, Mason's younger brother. My bad.
Yeah, he'll be a sophomore. They got 2 freshman guards from last year who are sophomores that are probably either will start or get a lot of time. I think Shelton's another one. Weston Shelton.
Yes,
Shelton,
right.
Maddox Griggs. But the Barron does have several players back. Ben Blackburn played a lot last year. Gavin Nunn, 6'7". They should have good size. Of course, Cade Hardy, just outstanding shooter. Yeah. Jackson Bird, who missed the year with an injury in football, but he's about 6'3", 6'4". And I think the Pippen kid, who
Cameron Pippen,
who sat out last year but played his first 2 years, is back, and he's about 6'5".
Yeah.
So Barron has got ingredients, and it's almost like it was 3 or 4 years ago when Barron started 2 sophomore guards in Tate Spillman and Bray Bewley, and I don't know who's going to start. It's too early to tell, but it does appear that that the backcourt could be pretty young. Yeah,
and that means during the course of the season that's the kind of thing that leads to growing pains. But you mentioned Gavin Nunn, who had a big regional tournament, had some big plays in the regional tournament during their run, the Trojans' run there, and he's a rare sized guy at the high school ranks, and he's got good, technique around the basket and that kind of stuff, inside skills, pretty good offensive rebounder as well. So he's having him and Cade Hardy back with that mixture of other people you mentioned, I think makes them maybe. I'll be one to admit I thought they would have a pretty significant drop off, but once I saw them play this summer, I was like, somehow Warren always manages to have these teams ready to go no matter what the situation is, and they're good, they're a solid team year in and year out. And I figured that'll be the case next year. So anybody overlooking them, maybe that's a mistake.
Yeah, no, I agree. That Warren's been doing this for a while, and he is. That's the nature of high school. You get them, and it's not like pros where you can sign them to long-term contracts. So they do
Right.
graduate, and that's the importance of your middle school and your freshman teams and JV teams and coaching and. Most schools, though it's changing more and more in high school where, people just transferring and right and left and this and that. But a lot of times it's player development within your program.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's traditionally been. And Coach Cunningham is very, very good at developing players.
Well, and the other Glasgow also played in that KABC shootout that was up in the Lexington area. Some games were in Georgetown at like George Rogers Clark. Some were at Lexington Catholic. I think Lexington Christian. I think they were just kind of all around in that area. The Scotties, from what I saw, scores-wise, and that I think watching them play, they still struggled to score. They're still trying to find some people who can really, I guess, not just shoot, but can individually score. And I think Jarek Martin could get there. He still needs to probably be a better outside shooter. Now, he had some impressive plays athletically in a couple of these shootout games with down-the-lane dunks and defensive stops and that kind of stuff. Physically, he's going to be a guy that's going to be hard to deal with. And then Jalen Bradley, I think, played pretty well overall in some of these games. And then you got some other younger guys coming up. Well, younger, they played like Grayson Bartley and Jackson Norris. Those guys coming up. I think Jeremiah Moore would be one of them too. So, I mean, they've got some guys coming up. I think from what I saw, scores, who they played, that kind of thing, they're going to have to be a team that really focuses on defense until they can figure out. And they may be a team that ends up utilizing their quickness to turn it into offense because they don't really seem to have any just like straight-up individual scorers on that team right now, John.
Well, that's one of the things that you try to find out in the summer.
Yeah.
What you're good at and what you're not good at, and sometimes that will. Sometimes you can plan ahead, I guess you could say, to the season about what I need to do individually to improve our skills, and obviously shooting is a big thing. It's something, especially if you don't play another sport. Guys can get better if they put the time into it that ways. But the other thing is if you can't see your team getting there, then you may have to change how you play.
Yeah.
So we want to play faster, or we're going to press more, or we're going to zone more, or whatever. Sometimes it takes a summer to maybe to figure out some of those things. Of course, it's your lineups are not completed in the summer anymore.
Yeah, that's right. You don't know who's going to actually be there or not be there when you get to the season.
Yeah.
And then I thought, like I said, we talked about the Caverna boys a little bit last week or a couple of weeks ago with the guys that they've had move in and new coach taking over. Of course, they got the four guys coming back who are going to be seniors this coming year with Jalen Crane, Cortavian Maxian, Tyson, and Kenyon Martin. But along with adding Richard Gatewood, who used to be the coach at Taylor County 10 years ago, they've added Gavin Lightning, Davier White, and Jason Graves, who are all pretty good, seemingly. So their key issue last year, they had 5 guys who could play. They just had nobody else, and that will not be the issue this coming season, at least based on what I've seen this summer. And I'll say this too: they found the toughest teams they could find to play in some of these summer tournaments, or at least teams that think they're also going to be good and fared pretty well against them.
Well, if you're going to be with those 4 guys back and the 3 transfers, if you believe you're going to be a top 10 team, and it sounds like to me they've kind of pulled the Greene County from last year.
Yeah,
where
they didn't get them from Philadelphia,
where Greene County had a lot of good players back, and they added the 2 out-of-state kids, and instantly Greene they became a top probably 15 team in the state.
Yeah.
If that's what you believe, then you need to play a great schedule.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I think that we did see with the Greene County situation was, in the end, it didn't really mesh well. They were good, but they weren't as good as everybody expected them to be. And actually, they wound up not having a whole lot of depth either. They ended up playing just 6 guys, I think, pretty much the whole season. And, that maybe wore down on them. It certainly, I think, was a factor in the regional tournament game against North Hardin, who was out there, running 5 in and 5 out and just trying to wear them down. So, you can bring in the players, but the question is, can you get them to play well together? That's going to be the key between what you believe you are and what you will actually be, I'd say, John.
No question about it. There is that chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
But it's generally good to have talent.
Yeah.
Talent generally beats no talent.
Van Chancellor, how did you win? I loaded the bus with the best talent, right?
That's generally a good plan.
Right. And then I thought the Barron County girls looked pretty good this summer. They also played some pretty tough teams during the summer, including state runner-up George Rogers Clark over at WKU. Manual, usually pretty strong.
Well, they have 1, 2, 3. I wrote down 7 players who are in the rotation. 7 of the top 9 players are back.
Yeah.
Burton and Atkinson and Shelby Bird. And I'm going to throw Addie Schlegel in as a starter from last year. She didn't start, but she played starter minutes. So those are 4 of their, top players back. Then you throw in McFall and Riley Wilson and Hannah Bragg, and they should be the prohibited number 1 team in the region. I mean, well, let me take that back. Them and Metcalf should be the top 2 teams.
Yeah.
I would put Barron above them simply because of the lost. Metcalf's lost 2 players really.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost the 6-year starter.
Yeah, Cassidy London.
And as of right now, they lost the girl to the knee injury.
Yeah, Josie Allen.
Yeah, but who will be back probably Christmas or January.
Right.
So right now, I think Barron is by far ahead of them. But when you're in the situation that Barron is in, which you are a favorite, then you start. I'd be interested to see how they construct their schedule and so forth. The team needs to be challenged.
Yeah.
I don't know if you just play within the region, that's going to be enough.
Right.
So, I have seen in the summer, just kept up with you through some of your photos and stuff. I know they played Manual. Mm-hmm. I think they played George Rogers Clark over the weekend, and George Rogers Clark probably will be top 3 in the state, if not number 1, number 2.
Yep. I think they ended up losing that game by 3 at WKU on the Diddle Arena floor.
And again, I don't know who plays.
Yeah.
When you play these summer games, the teams are not always – all their players may not be there for other commitments, or they may not have, quote-unquote, signed other players yet. But I know George Rogers Clark has a guard that Western's interested in.
Yeah, Teddy Yeast. Is that who it is?
Stamper.
Oh, Stamper. Well,
yes,
I think
she's a point guard, be a junior.
Yeah.
She's been starting since her 8th grade year. She's double figures. She had a big game at state tournament this year. She had 30 in one game.
That's right.
She's one of the better players in the state. So
I'm pretty sure she and Yeast both played in that game against Barron. So right. I mean, that's going to be 2 of their might be their 2 best players.
Could be. That's correct. So I do expect Barron girls to be really, really good.
Yeah, and then I thought the Glasgow Lady Scotties. I liked a lot of what I saw they were trying to do. I think a couple of things that still stand in their way just at the moment is they don't really have. They have some size, but the size doesn't really match up with what else they have going on the floor, which is a lot of guards, and so they may be kind of stuck with playing 2 different styles sometimes, and I kind of worry about that with Barron a little bit too because they have a bunch of really good guards and they have a couple of big kids, and how are you going to fit that rotation? But nonetheless, they have more experience, where they have more depth than Glasgow, I think, in that sense. But anyway, I thought the Lady Scotties. Again, defensively, they look good.
That hasn't been their issue.
No, I mean they've just got to figure out another team that's got to figure out how to score because they don't really seem to have an individual who can just go get.
Yeah, they struggled last year. Reese England, I think she was a 7th grader last year. She showed good signs of making shots, and Kayla Kirkpatrick, she's probably a junior now. Mm-hmm. She's been playing since her 7th grade year.
Yeah,
probably needs to become more. I think it's fair to say more consistent shooter and so forth. She's had really good games and so forth. I think Jordy Goodman's back too, right? Those are 3 that probably have the most experience. I'm guessing that are back.
Well, you have Carly Hagan who's played inside. She's
right.
and she's a scrappy player,
right.
and she's one of those that if she can get a little range on her shot and that kind of stuff, she could be a pretty dangerous player. I think matchup problems wise, but. Yeah, they still are trying to figure out, I think, just how to be a better scoring team. And I mean, some of that, right, just is confidence. Sometimes you have the skills you need. You just got to learn what shots to take when and have the confidence that that's your shot, I think.
It's part of it. Confidence is – it's good to have that in any sport you play, for sure. Yeah. And it's – sometimes it's players around you helps. Mm-hmm. You get easier shots if you have better players around you. A point guard who can distribute the ball in the right way, a post player who can demand double teams opens up more shots as well. I mean, there's other factors that go along with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take a person who's just a good solid role player, and you put her on a bad team, and you'll never notice her.
Yeah, right.
But you put her on a good team where you can actually see her contributions. You go, yeah, that girl's really, really important.
Yeah, that's true. And again, what do coaches want from the summer games? It's what you said earlier, right? You just want to see how people are improving, what your pieces are, and gives you an early idea of what to plan for the season.
Yeah, sometimes you can see who can play, and a lot of the players can play. They're already proven. I mean, Shelby Bird's already proven she can play.
Right.
Cade Hardy's proven he can play. Things like that. So sometimes you're trying to find those other players. Mm-hmm. Can they play? Or no, they're not ready.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's some moments in the summer that you can kind of see something. Find that out. Who's starting to develop and ready to play.
Yep. All right. It's a Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag. James Brown, John Butler, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. John, the NBA Finals wrapped up on Sunday evening, kind of in a disappointing fashion in the sense that we got to a Game 7, and honestly, going into the game, I was not certain which team would win. I still thought Oklahoma City was better just because I thought just in total they had more pieces, more people who could do both offense and defensive things that were disruptive to the Pacers, and I thought they could pull it out. And plus, I thought Shai Gilgeous-Alexander might have a pretty big Game 7. Turned out he kind of didn't, but it didn't matter because Tyrese Halliburton went down in the first quarter with the Achilles injury, and despite the valiant effort of the Pacers, they just didn't have the gas to overtake the game.
Well, they ran out of players.
Yeah.
I mean, when you take your point guard out.
Right.
And Indiana was up 1.5.
That's true.
But,
third quarter was a disaster.
It was a disappointing ending. God, you just hate to see it for Indiana and for a young player like Halliburton because, it's the torn Achilles has replaced the ACL as the nightmare injury.
Yeah.
And if you've got a calf strain, you better be really, really careful.
Yep.
Because these calf strings, the Achilles is attached to that.
Right.
And everybody that I ever talked to describes the torn Achilles with the same way. They feel like they've been kicked in the back of the calf.
Yeah.
They actually turn. Sometimes people they turn around and see who kicked them, and it's a torn Achilles. Mm-hmm. And NBA has lost Halliburton, and he won't play next year.
No, he's gone for a year.
I mean, this is a year, 15 months recovery almost. Mm-hmm. So he probably won't play. Tatum, same thing. Mm-hmm. The guy from Milwaukee, Dame Lillard, torn, same thing. So those are three. And of course, Durant did it a few years ago, trying to play on a calf strain.
Yeah.
It's just a terrible injury, and I hated it for him because he was playing well. He had 8 out of the first 9 points.
Yeah,
he had a couple of threes and a 2 and so forth, and that just kind of took the life out of it. But congrats! I mean, the series was so well played. Mm-hmm. I mean, the NBA playoffs is too long. First of all,
oh yeah,
it starts in April and it's June. It ended on June 22nd. That's ridiculous.
It was 2 months basically.
It takes way too long to play.
I guess. Yeah.
But that series was out. If you just like basketball, then you should really appreciate it because it was well played. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many technicals there were in the 7 games, but no more than 3 maybe.
Yeah.
You saw no fights, the guys just played. There was nothing controversial. You didn't even see a lot of replays and controversial calls. Those guys played. They didn't mouth. They didn't whine much at the officials. And it was so refreshing to see competitive play without it being dirty.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was competitive and it was physical.
Physical, but not dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, you just didn't see the attack of the Luka is such a great player, but he whines constantly. It's just hard to watch.
Right.
Draymond Green, every series he's in, there's a fight, there's technicals. He's just it's hard for me to stomach watching him. LeBron, drama.
James Harden.
Drama and so forth.
Yeah.
But you didn't have any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And were the ratings down? Yeah, maybe people just like to see the technicals and stuff, which is a shame. Because these were just 2 young basketball teams that played together. They were deep. They had, SGA is a star, but he doesn't hog all the attention. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got so many other players, young coaches too. By the way, Oklahoma City's coach is young.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was most of the players that were there were drafted. Now SGA was in a trade.
Yeah.
But he was when they traded Paul George for him, and Halliburton was also in a trade.
Yeah.
I think both players came out of Sacramento, maybe, to get there. Is that right?
In different SGA trades? Was at the Clippers.
At the Clippers.
Yes.
Okay. Halliburton was from Sacramento.
Yes.
Okay. But everything else is pretty much homegrown and things like that. So, a few signees like Caruso, who's a big-time player.
Yeah.
That's his second title. Got one with the Lakers. Oklahoma City has 2 for UK people. SGA was there for a year, and Case and Wallace. Mm-hmm. They made one-year pit stops at Kentucky. So, and Oklahoma City's going to be good for a while. I mean, their best players are all still under contract.
It's kind of a fascinating transition. We've gone. It's always fascinating to me, the history of like pro sports, but the NBA kind of stands out in a way. I think because the personalities are so big and that kind of thing, and the theories for success are what they are from generation to generation. But if you go back and you look, we had the era where people drafted, and sometimes there were trades, but 80s, you had Magic Johnson, Larry Bird drafted by their teams. There was, machinations in terms of trades and that kind of stuff. But you look at both of those runs for both those, it was a lot of people that kind of were drafted by those organizations and then stuck around. Some became stars, some became role players. Then we kind of had the era of the free agency where people are just moving around and trying to get together in a location, trying to win championships. And now the salary cap is such that it's almost like the NFL in that your window to win is if you have your star player on its rookie contract, and I'm putting rookie in air quotes here, or at least a contract that allows you to pad people around them that fit. And what we see, I think, out of the Pacers and the Thunder is they've got some star potential players and maybe even an actual star in SGA, and Halliburton, potential star. I mean, I don't know whether he's there or not, in terms of like name recognition for people.
Good dudes.
Good dudes. But also what they've done is they've built teams. It's not just we're going to run a high pick and roll for this one dude or run flat for this one dude or ISOs.
I agree.
It's a whole – everybody out there has a role, and they're playing it, even the stars for these two teams.
Yeah, no, they share the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Even though SGA led the league or second in the league in scoring, he shares the ball. He's not a ball hog. He plays defense on both ends too. Very, very likable. And and kind of humble. And it seems like the international players that come here, and SGA is a Canadian,
right?
They just seem to be a little bit more humble.
Mm-hmm.
The Joker's humble. The guy of Milwaukee,
Giannis.
Humble.
Giannis.
Now, Luka, maybe not so. But it does seem
he's a different cat altogether.
It does seem like they handle themselves a little bit more humble than some of the American stars have in the past. Outside of Steph Curry, I like Steph Curry.
Yeah,
but you got Draymond on that team. It kind of makes it sometimes tougher to watch at times.
Well, and if you look at the NBA Finals and even the road up to the NBA Finals, and you look at the Thunder. SGA is a star, but you also have a guy like Jalen Williams on the team who has a 40-point game, I think, in Game 5. You know, and
Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, we'll have a. I mean, he had like 7 blocks in Game 7
That's
or something
right.
of that nature. And these are guys you know who they are, but
you know who they are because you watched the series. I didn't know who Williams was.
oh, you did.
I didn't pay attention to him much.
Yeah, he's kind of fascinating cat, but you kind of have the same thing with the Pacers. Even though you have Halliburton, you have Pascal Siakam out there, or you have
Won a title at Toronto.
yes, you know. So there's room for there's not this traditional seeming animosity between these top players. There's room for them, and they all have an objective, and it's pretty clear they just wanted to win a championship.
I thought the series was outstanding. I loved how they played. I loved how they competed, and they did it in the right way.
Yeah.
And drama free, which is probably upsets a lot of people.
Yeah.
But to me, I like it.
It takes this is a classic case of if you are a drive-by fan and you show up for the finals and you're like, well, I don't even know who these people are, then, okay, you might be disappointed. But if you're an actual fan of basketball or you're a fan of the NBA basketball, then this was probably a beautiful thing to you.
Right.
Not just because it was a 7-game series, but because of how
they played and competed.
Yeah.
And like I said, probably the last mouthing and technicals that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, there was not a whole lot of
and reviews and controversy. They just didn't have it.
Yeah. So that leads me to this, the drama. Does it matter that Kevin Durant is traded to Houston?
Does he make them a little better? Maybe a little better because they lack scoring.
Yeah.
And
also, they got rid of Jalen Green, who was supposed to be their star player and flopped.
Right. So, but Kevin Durant's now 37, 38.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more gas that he has left in him, but that may make them slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't be. I don't think they're as good as the top teams.
If I was Kevin Durant, I think I would have begged to go to the Knicks.
Has Kevin Durant? Who's he made better in the last couple of years?
I mean, no one actually. Not really since he left Golden State.
Right.
Left Golden State. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, since his injury.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, New Jersey flop, Phoenix, and that's with Booker and some other players. They were terrible.
Yeah.
They just didn't do anything.
Yeah. Before he got there, they were actually better than once he was there.
All right, so I don't, it's name recognition, and a lot of the pundits on TV, will brag, Houston this or that. To me, not a big dent.
I think if I was Kevin Durant at 37 years old and I looked around the landscape in the NBA and my ambition is to get back to the finals and have a chance to win,
went to the wrong conference.
Yes, I would not have stayed in the West.
Somebody like Miami wanted him. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you go to the Heat, go to the Knicks.
Well, I don't know what they got to offer.
I don't
those
either.
Things I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. But I mean, obviously he put some things on the table and said, I would like to go to these places. Some of those places may have said, no, thank you. But if I was one of those teams in the East, I probably would have said, let's figure out how to make it happen. I don't care if I have to give you 20 second-round draft picks over the next decade or 3 first rounds or whatever.
Right.
Because the East, going back to what we were just talking about with the injuries to Halliburton and Tatum, East is open.
And to Dame Lillard.
Yeah. I
Very
mean, the
much
East
so.
is open.
Yeah, the Knicks probably be the favorite right now.
Yeah, I'd have to say so. So, I mean, that's why if I'm Kevin Durant, this was you won out of Phoenix, but this was a bad business decision to stay in the West, in my humble opinion.
If he had options, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, my least favorite college baseball program won the World Series, for the second time in 3 years, LSU?
They did. Two times in 3 years.
Yeah, so... they beat Coastal Carolina, 5-3, and then 1-0 in the first game. So they swept the series 2-0. And to explain why I don't like LSU, it's like this. I grew up in South Mississippi. And ironically enough, my high school football team has the same colors as LSU, and we are also the Tigers. And I don't know who founded that school, but they must have been from Baton Rouge.
I like the colors, purple and gold, or they're purple and yellow, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah, it works out. It's the same. I mean, so I grew up with a high school that looked like an LSU football team, and then anytime we had a great player coming up through high school or whatever, they would choose to go to LSU instead of go to Southern Miss. Right there in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So then I didn't like that. They would recruit out of South Mississippi all the time, and whatever the sport. I think two of the best baseball players to come out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, both ended up going to LSU, and so I just have a grand distaste for them. And also while I'm on this, while I'm just driving this train, also what would also happen is every year Southern Miss would be the 2 seed in the Baton Rouge region. Now, in recent years, they've been hosting more often.
Yeah, they hosted this year.
They did, but on several of those occasions, LSU was the 2 seed in the Hattiesburg region, and then they ended up winning the thing. And
So you're jealous.
Jealous? Yes, John.
Okay.
I just have great disdain
That's
for LSU.
what it sounds like.
I'm like that person who just, I feel like I've been slighted my entire life when it comes to this college baseball program.
I'm not a huge LSU fan, but they love them some baseball.
They do indeed. I mean, and look, I can't complain about that. They are good.
And they knocked off the 2 best teams up there in Arkansas and Coastal.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina, I think, had won 27-28 in a row before they got to the finals, and LSU beat them 1-0, and just obviously a pitching duo, 1-0. That was, I think the LSU pitcher struck out 13 or 14. Left-hander went the whole distance.
Yeah.
Yesterday's game, in which LSU won 5-3, was, I don't know if you watched it, it was extremely controversial.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of no controversy or drama in the NBA, but there was all kinds yesterday. The home plate umpire, for some reason, thought he was bigger than the game and threw out the Coastal Carolina head coach, the manager, and first base coach in the first inning.
Yes.
In the very first inning.
What can you possibly say to be thrown out that quickly? Other than I know where you live or something like that.
Yeah, he gave them a warning over arguing balls and strikes in the first inning. One of the LSU runners one of the Coastal runners stole second on a first pitch curveball that was clearly inside, and the umpire, everybody was kind of more watching the play to second.
Yeah.
Called it a strike that nobody knew, and eventually told everybody, it was a strike. And evidently got some chirping from the first base coach and from the LSU dugout, and he gives them a warning in the first inning. And then the manager of LSU came out and go, "What's the warning for?" And
Coastal.
The Coastal manager comes out on the field and asks what the warning was about, and he told him no more arguing over balls and strikes or whatever. And he, the Coastal Carolina manager, put up the number 3, like you've already missed 3 calls, and then he tossed him. First inning. National championship game. You talking about, as an umpire, you got to be better than that.
Yeah.
So after he threw him out, obviously the manager now, you got nothing to lose. He came all the way out on the field, and one of the umpire's buddies from second base runs in and trips over. It looks like to me he tripped over the home plate umpire's foot and falls and rolls over. He claimed that the Coastal Carolina manager pushed him, which he did not, and raises 2, meaning you're out for 2 games in case they end up winning. And it's just like the whole game, know. I mean, listen, we are supporters in here of umpires,
yes,
and of referees. We've had shows about that.
Yes,
it's a hard job and so forth.
Yes,
at that level, you got to be able to take a little bit as an umpire.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have a little context that you're in the national title game. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be throwing out a head coach in the first inning unless it's just awful.
Yeah, that's why I said, I mean, what could he say other than I know where you live and I'm coming to your house?
Yeah,
I mean, it's one thing if you just threaten the guy.
No. So, I mean, it's just too much ego.
Yeah.
And so, they end up winning the game LSU 5-3, but, that's when you start off a game like that, it's a little over the top.
As much as I really enjoy the college baseball World Series playoffs and run to the World Series, and like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I mean, one of my favorite sports weekends of the year is that regional tournament weekend, because I mean it's just so much going on.
And the super regional.
Yeah.
And the reason why, I know where you're going with this, and I agree. Once you get to the World Series and get the 8 games in a park that seats 25,000 and it's a neutral park, it loses some of the atmosphere.
Yes.
The regionals, the super regionals, are just full of drama and and you got crowds on one side against the home team supporting them. Once you get there, it's a little. It just seems like to me it loses some of that.
It gains majesty, but it loses the intensity.
That's right.
And then the other thing that kind of bugs me about college baseball, and it seems to show up when we get to the World Series more prevalently than it does in that regional and super regional section, is some of the delays in the game in terms of checking the review and the bantering. That kind of, it seems like the officials become a lot more centered at the World Series than they are at the regional and the super regional. And I don't know if it's just a byproduct of some of the other stuff going on is now no longer really going on, the intensity and that kind of thing, and so we're just seeing more of it.
I don't know, but it does lose a little. The atmosphere is not quite, in my opinion, as good.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know how to fix it, but it and plus now is the pitching is probably better. You got the top 8 teams, so you have better pitching. But if you watch these regionals and super regional games, it seems like there's more offense.
Yes, that's right.
And you get up there, I think part of it is the park is bigger, and I do think in Omaha it seems like the wind blows in a lot.
Right.
So it's not quite as many runs that are scored and people on base, and that may take away a little bit too.
Yeah, but yeah, that first inning of the LSU Coastal Carolina game has been one of the biggest disasters I think I've seen at the College World Series in terms of just what are we doing?
Stay out of the way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, stay out of the way if you're an umpire. First inning, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be better than that.
Here's another thing I thought about, and I thought about this actually during the high school baseball and softball season. I know umpires have different I guess levels of how they say balls and strikes. But sometimes I watch, especially on TV, and it's not demonstrative enough for me to actually know. And I've actually heard sometimes the announcers say this, that they'll be like, well, I thought that was a strike, or I thought that was a ball. The call wasn't demonstrative enough for everybody to really pick it up. And you're kind of relying on the TV to know whether or not they did it. And you mentioned that after a while, everybody realized he'd called a strike on the play. It was as if maybe he wasn't really, I don't know, vocalizing or whatever it is he needs to do, or signaling clearly.
The guy stole it second. I think everybody's attention was diverted.
Yeah, so maybe it was just they just
it looked like an obvious ball to me.
Yeah, there's that.
It's like, what? You called that a strike?
Yeah, so maybe that was it. It looked like an obvious ball to everybody except for the umpire.
Yeah.
But overall, I really enjoy the college baseball postseason. I think it's a lot of fun, and I would love to go to the World Series someday. I think it would be a neat environment, no matter what, just to go there, even if you're not rooting for some. It might be better to go there and not root for someone, just to go watch.
Probably.
So, there's that. We've got the Reds here. They're 40-38. They're fourth in the NL Central. The Cubs are 46-31. They lead the division.
Yeah, the Reds at 40-38. That would have put them first or second in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So they're above 500, but fourth in the Central, and that's because the Cubs are really good this year. Milwaukee is about like Milwaukee has been. They're good. St. Louis is much better than average. So it's a tight race. There's 4 teams over 500 in the Central.
Yeah. So
that makes it, the Reds are a little bit better. They're still offensively a little challenged, but with Terry Francona, their manager, I feel a lot more confident in them this year than I have been in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at the standings, and I was like, well, they are competitive.
Did you see the Dodgers-Padres series?
I did not.
Well, they had a couple of they had a bench clearing brawl. Those two teams legitimately don't like each other, and probably Padres may have been the second best team last year in all of baseball behind the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Well, they ended up they had a a big brawl between the two teams, and the managers got into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the ninth inning, it's 5-2 after the Padres have already the Dodgers hit the Padres, probably best player or one of them, Tatis, and he had to take him out of the game because he hit his hand. In the ninth inning, it's 5-2, Padres up, and Ohtani is up. 3-0 count, and there's one person on. 3-0 count, they hit him in the upper shoulder. It's almost like, okay, it's already 3. I'm just going to walk. I'd rather hit you.
Yeah,
this is after a bench curling brawl. So it looks like it's on again. Ohtani jogs down first baseline and tells his dugout, "Don't come out. I'm okay." He puts his hands up like, "Don't come out. It's not. Don't do it."
Yeah.
And he goes up to first, and eventually he walks over himself to the Padres dugout and just starts talking with them.
That's hilarious.
I've never seen that before.
He's a different cat.
He stops another brawl from happening. Amazing.
Well, that's a great story. Everybody should be a Shohei fan at this point.
He needs to be in some peace process, right?
There we go. Get him out there, man. Send Shohei.
That's right.
All right, it's Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Real quick, before we get out of here in the next minute and a half, I wanted to tell you folks that we will not have a show on July 7th. I'm going to take my little summer break, and then when we come back on July 14th, we'll be geared up for the next sports season in high school sports, and we'll start having our coaches come in and that kind of jazz and talk about their teams, and it'll be here before you know it. I guess John will be back out there on Friday nights doing Berrien County football broadcasts with Jay Turner and whomever else they can convince to go eat with them.
Look forward to it. That's one of my favorite seasons, football.
And, of course, we'll have Joe Myers and his crew doing Glasgow Scotties here on WCLU starting next year. We'll all be together. It'll be great, and we'll have everybody in here on the Brown Sports Bag, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow every Monday, except for July 7th. This is the Brown Sports Bag today, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
You've been listening to the Brown Sports Bag on WCLU. Be sure to join James and John again next Monday at 4 for another edition of the Brown Sports Bag.